Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, thanks again, Tim, for the sort of kind invite introduction, and it's a sort of pleasure to be here today. Uh, as Tim said, ultimately my business is sort of really passionate to work with business owners and to help them really understand, what they need to do to build a culture that helps them sort of thrive and survive. And businesses are always changing, so I guess I'm going to wear my culture hat today to answer the question that you've posed, Tim. What's the biggest challenges that we're facing in UK businesses at the moment? So I think the key thing that business owners need to think about. So we've been talking about it with businesses, all year really, but I think as we all sort of really look forward to turning the page into 2021, I think everybody's sort of keen to understand what their new updated plan is for that. So, of course, there's the financial planning going on, but the question we're asking people to consider is what is your plan around people strategy? What is your plan to evolve your culture? Because culture is something that is always evolving when you bring new people into the business or you change your ways of working. So we can all acknowledge that realistically, to have a culture for 2021 and beyond, where there is very clear changes to the ways of working, both at a colleague and teammate level, and also with our customers level. What is the plan in place you have for that? So it's different for each business, but again, there is consistencies in the core principles, and I guess we'd call them pillars that you would really want to consider. So I guess appreciate we've got a very short time here today. So what I wanted to do is just introduce some of those key pillars that we would recommend that people look at as they're taking their plans, sitting down with their teams and trying to really shape what their culture evolution or what their people strategy plan should be for the following year, really. So again, this is something that people have hopefully been aware of, but I can't really stress enough how important a vision is, to give everybody hope for the future and clarity on what is that journey that they're going to go on, and you're asking people to come on with you, often in with less colleague resource, so potentially more demands on the time. So getting people behind the vision and getting them to really understand what that is absolutely critical. And for most businesses that we've been working with and supporting to, the reality is the visions needs to be updated. Maybe ambitions have changed, maybe growth plans have changed, or again going back to the ways of working. So I think vision has to be the starting point, really. Leadership culture, of course, has had to change. We've spent the last 2 or 3 years speaking to businesses in our engagement programs where employees have asked for more flexible ways of working. I guess the honest answer is that a lot of business leaders have sort of acknowledged the idea of it, but have maybe not been so keen to really give employees the level of flexibility and freedom they're maybe asking for when you talk about not being in the office and everything else. Well, 2020 was the year where everybody's hand got forced. And so this level of flexibility was given whether people wanted to or not. And we have to acknowledge now that most businesses have actually reported that has worked better than expected. Of course, there's a big trend for people to want to come back into the office a proportion of the time, but I don't think we're ever going to go back to that 5 days a week type model. So with a lack of presenteeism, the leadership culture needs to and should change, and leading people in a more remote and flexible world, there are different principles to it that we understand you need to consider to do that. So again, what are businesses doing to really support their leadership teams? Probably having a harder job than they've ever had before. So creating that support around them and help take them on that development journey so that they feel confident about the way they're going to manage teams and engage their teams most effectively. So I think that's really, really important. I've sort of touched on it already. Ways of working, which we talk a lot about, giving everybody clarity on what are our new processes, what are our new standards, what are our new ways we're going to go about our business, both internally and with our customers. Take the time in advance to put the clarity around that is something that you will get the benefit from time and time again. So I think doing a ways of working type analysis and planning is something that would be a really good action that people can look at, to set them in good stead for 2021, really. And again, understanding what are your target core behaviours and standards, because if you've got absolute clarity around what behaviours we expect as a business and what is okay and what isn't okay around standards, that should give everybody confidence to deal with the challenges of remote working much more effectively. So, you can have, if you see evidence of people role modeling those, whether they're sitting next to you or not, it really shouldn't matter. And I think that's something that, we've seen a lot of businesses get a lot of benefits from considering. Again, the challenge is, sitting with people day to day, you can see how they're developing, you can see how they're evolving. So I think one of the biggest challenges business faces, as they all look to be growth focused, is how do you identify those high performers or those future high performers, and how do you nurture and help those people who are working for you to really help them unlock that hidden potential. So again, like all these things, it's an easy thing to say, but it's a much harder thing to actually implement and roll out. So I think that's something that you need to get all the teams involved in, not just at leadership level, to start to consider and get everybody bought into how you can both support each other to develop, as well as look at your own personal development journeys. And then I think the lastly is about understanding, having absolute clarity about what high performance means, or what performance now means for your business. And it may well have changed, as we've talked about, but giving everybody absolute clarity on that, and what role are they going to play in that. So again, it's the first step is get everybody on board with the vision, win everyone's hearts and minds, make sure they've got the development plans in place that are engaging for them, but also beneficial to the business. And then really the last part of that for us is, okay, well, when everybody's on board and ready to really be growth focused rather than sort of survival focused, as you referred to at the start of this session, is, how are they going to go and execute? What are going to be the ways of working in terms of, rolling out that strategy and being aligned? We work with businesses time and time again where there's misalignment between what SLT and MMT teams are doing, and then on a team by team basis. So if you can get everybody on board with exactly what the objectives are for each business, then you will reap the benefits, in a challenging, changeable market that we find ourselves in.